Which one of y'all writes which song?
All the good ones are mine. He does the ones that are shit.
Hilarious. Number 9. Really great.
Ooh, yesterday. Today.
He writes the ones that are, oh, there's no God, I'm a fucking asshole.
Oh.
And I write the ones that are beautiful and great, and then he will jump in with a yeah, yeah, yeah.
I write songs about peace and love. He writes Susudio.
Communism is the best, I'm a commie.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 49 of Formidable Opponents, a show that pits three people who have known each other virtually their entire lives in a series of conversations as we argue what is best in a variety of fun, engaging, and critical pop culture topics we all debate about. I'm Randall, and with me as always, Bob and Joseph, and today's topic, we're talking Worst Beatles Song. Last week, we defended the best song from an oft-ridiculed band, that band being Nickelback. This week, we are criticizing what we feel is the worst single from the greatest band who ever lived. Yes, we realize the Beatles are icons. Yes, you cannot refute the fact that they are the most important band in musical history. They are revered musicians, songwriters, they're geniuses. Like any other visionaries, they are not without their detractors. If you consider the Beatles the greatest band of all time, you cannot deny that like many of the greatest, they have their bad days. They all do. March 14th, 1985, in his rookie year, Michael Jordan shot 5 of 18 from the field and only 6 of 11 from the free throw line, scoring only 16 points, losing 106-97 against a putrid Knicks team. On September 7th, 2003, Tom Brady completed only 14 of 28 passes for 123 yards, 4 interceptions, and amassed a 22.5 QB rating as he was pulled from a 31-0 loss against the Buffalo Bills. Al Pacino thought it was a good idea to portray himself and try to sleep with Adam Sandler in Jack and Jill. And Breaking Bad did that shitty episode where Walter and Jesse spent 55 minutes trying to kill a mosquito in a meth lab. The point is, everyone has a bad day. Hell, Tiger Woods had a bad year in 2009. Depending on what your take on things is, some people would consider that a great decade. Look, we're sure if Paul McCartney was sitting here right now, he'd say, yeah, we had a few stinkers, so what? But this week, I tried, guys.
Hell of a try.
Let's leave the impressions to me, sir.
Yeah.
This week, Formidable Opponents takes on the task of talking about which is the worst Beatles song. Bob, Joseph, I don't know why you say goodbye. I say hello. How are you guys doing?
You say yes. I say no. After that impression, no, please. What's up, man? Doing great. How's everyone doing out there?
Yeah, what's up, everybody? How you doing? Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for coming back, hopefully, after hearing that last episode and hearing us talk.
Well, if they didn't like us after talking Nickelback, they're sure as hell not going to like us after saying that Beatles had some shitty songs. So this should be interesting.
Yeah, let's have some fun.
What a strange thing. So, guys, for the past 2 weeks, I have immersed myself in Nickelback songs and the worst Beatles songs. And in between that, I didn't even have a palate cleanser. Like, my daughter loves listening to Doja Cat now. So every time we're in the car, we have to listen to Doja Cat. I mean, I like Doja Cat, but you have to find those radio-friendly edits. And I was driving. I was thinking about this episode. And the song came on for Doja Cat, and I forgot to take out the explicit lyrics. And I could hear a little voice singing some cuss words in the back. So that is the fastest I've ever tried to change a station. The fastest I'd ever tried to change a station previously, I don't know if you guys remember, back in the day, HBO had this series called Real Sex. And so I remember my parents were at a party and they came back and they come into my room unannounced. And I'm watching this Real Sex, and it's like, Eastern European old people doing tantric group stuff. And like my parents walked in like, what the hell are you watching? And like my dad looks at me like, I mean, he's like, he just ate a rancid pecan. He just looks at me. I'm like, Dad, why aren't you helping me out? Richard Williams furiously defended his family, Dad. I know you watch this stuff too. Help me out. I see the reflection on Joseph's glasses. He's looking up tantric on the movie. So that was the quickest I've ever changed dials. But speaking of quickly changing, what inspired us to go after the biggest band in the history of music, guys?
After trying to celebrate Nickelback, I thought, what the hell? Might as well piss everyone else off and go worst Beatles song.
I don't think we're going at them. I think if you're not a true Beatles fan, if you don't think that they have a few bad songs. I mean, even some of my most favorite bands in the world put out a song or two that you're like, you know what, I'm going to skip that one. So if we're not, I don't think we're necessarily going after them. I think we're doing our due diligence, which is, hey, like you said,
Hey.
everybody has a bad day. Everybody has a bad album. Sometimes those two things go hand in hand.
And sometimes you're Nickelback and it's just your whole career.
And sometimes you can put out 7 fucking singles and an album. But I mean, yeah, you're not a real fan if you just think that everything is fucking great. By the way, what the hell is a Doja Cat? Can somebody please explain that?
I don't know. My daughter loves her music, man. It's actually kind of catchy, so I don't mind. She's a good artist. So guys, when you have bands, any bands that have had bad singles, they get raked across the coals. The Beatles, for the most part, have remained unscathed. Does being the Beatles give them immunity?
No, I don't think so. I think it's like in sports. If you're a sports coach, if you win more than you lose, then that's all that matters. And I think they have so many amazing singles and hits and albums, and their career was just an amazing career, both as the Beatles, the band, and then as they went on to do their own thing. They've just put out so many brilliant and amazing songs that have really changed the course of pop and rock and music in general. So when you're that kind of iconic band and you put out a dud every once in a while, nobody really cares, because the rest of the album usually has major hits, and because you've put out hit after hit after hit, not every song is going to be an amazing song. So no, I don't think they get a pass.
Yeah, agreed. We all, like I mentioned just a while ago, you're not a real fan if you don't believe that at some point when somebody was introduced to the band and started to have a little influence on the writing style or how the music was coming out, you can clearly tell that experimental phase was not the best, I guess, if you want to say that. There's probably plenty of reasons why. I think most people will agree there's a particular someone is the reason why that maybe that time in the Beatles history isn't as great. But no, like Bob said, they don't get a pass. I don't, why should they get a pass? They're musicians. They're one of the biggest musicians, the biggest group ever, but I really don't think that matters. Everybody has a bad day, like we've already said.
One thing that really shocked me, going through the Wikipedia, I like to go and look at Wikipedia pages of bands and their albums and their discography. And anytime they have a single, they'll have a link to click on that single. It tells you the history. Most bands, you'll see like 3 or 4 highlighted singles on their discography where you could go on Wikipedia and read about the song. The Beatles, like everything was highlighted. Like you could read about every song. It's like everything was so revered. And I know they've given us so much and they've been so influential. And just like you guys mentioned, and I sort of alluded to this on the beginning, like nobody remembers that shitty Michael Jordan game. Nobody remembers that shitty Tom Brady game. Everybody remembers the championships. And that's what the Beatles had with these albums. Those albums were titles. And I think that's why we don't talk and discover much about their bad songs. And so this is going to be a fun episode because I think we're doing something that not a lot of people do. And that's shit on the Beatles.
The shitty Beatles. They any good? They suck.
It's not either of our selections, and this is just my opinion. But is the song Yesterday a bad Beatles song, or at least overrated? Because I think it's their most overrated song. What do you guys think?
Absolutely not. That is one of the greatest fucking songs I've ever heard. That is and you know what? I'm surprised in doing the research for this and looking at different albums and songs, and I was surprised that this song came out on some lists, if you want to say. I don't understand it. Like, okay, so where's the hate? I don't understand how it's overrated. I don't think it was overplayed. I don't think it was shoved down everybody's throats back then.
Yeah, they had way too many singles for it to be overplayed because they had a new hit every 2 fucking weeks.
I mean, it's a beautiful fucking song. It's probably not, obviously it's not about, the majority of what they maybe write about, maybe because it's a little serious and not so like, drugs, but
that was Bob Dylan. Come on, no shit on my,
you and me, maybe because it's the story of that song is clear, heartbreak. I don't understand it. I don't understand. I think it's a great song. Obviously, Paul, You know, we're not going to get into this argument of who's the better singer, but I particularly like it.
It's not Ringo, that's for damn sure.
I don't think, I think it was the perfect song for him to sing, and I think it's great. I hate that it comes out, and I don't agree with that, Randy. I would love to hear why you think it is.
Well, let me add on top of that. I agree with that 1,000%. I think it's a beautiful song. It's sad. It's heartbreaking. It's a great song with awesome lyrics and a beautiful sad tone. It's one of my favorite songs from the band. So I don't get that it's overrated or overplayed. I think it's a fantastic song.
I just don't think it's anything special. And I think a lot of people revere it and they play it over a lot of, like, you'll see like the Academy Awards and the In Memoriam, and they're playing Yesterday. And I just think it's been overdone. I don't think it's anything special. I think they had far more sentimental songs. And we'll talk about that next week when we do our best Beatles song episode, just to balance everything out. But I didn't think it was anything special. That's just me.
That's because you'd rather listen to REO Speedwagon after a breakup with the Beatles.
I can't argue that. All right. So when listening to some of the bad Beatles songs, was there a common theme, guys? For example, were they being too hokey, too serious, too experimental? What were some of the things you caught on to that were constant and you thought, you know what, they were going the wrong path with me?
I think two of those things, the hokey, as you described it. I don't think the seriousness was that, because like just how you talked about, Yesterday right now it's fairly serious song, straightforward. So for me, too hokey and definitely experimental. I mean, you can pretty much tell in going through these songs, one in particular that I'm sure we'll all mention in honorable mentions, very, very, very experimental. And I don't know if it's I don't want to say it's a bad thing. I mean, clearly look at the time that they were living in, and the substances that were available and that made available, maybe, due to the life. Yeah, that was one of the things I noticed. And a lot of these songs in particular came from, like, if you look at any particular lists or anything that you're going to read online, a lot of them come from one specific album. And I'm pretty sure we'll mention that in a bit.
The experimental, as far as their music is concerned, I think they had to. I think that's what makes them so great, as well as delivered some duds. Like I mentioned before, experimenting and trying to discover a sound, a new sound, a different style of pop or rock, or, there's so many different influential things in the world going on in the 60s, especially in that psychedelic time, that their music kind of changed. And you had the hokey songs, the heartbreak songs, these experimental songs. They're very Indian inspired in certain things. Their music is just amazing. The great thing about the Beatles is they create and fit so many different genres of music because of trying new things, discovering new music, discovering new styles, trying new styles, and experimenting a lot. So I think that has a lot to do with it.
I think it's the drugs in Yoko. Anytime those things were introduced,
Coco,
that's really
Coco, exactly.
He's in love with the Coco.
The thing about, I remember watching this great clip, and I can't find it to save my life. I couldn't find it to save my life, but there's this great clip of when the Beatles released Strawberry Fields, and there's a studio audience and they're watching the video for Strawberry Fields. They cut back to the studio audience, excuse me. And most of the group and the audience are kind of like stunned, and then their jaws are unhinged. And so they interview this one guy who has like the psychedelic look to him. And he's like, what do you think about this song? And he's like, oh, this is fucking awesome. And this is great. And those are the people that grew to love the Beatles, who were influencing other artists, who were buying the albums. So the fact that they grew, I know a lot of people say, well, they experimented, they were different, but they were growing their audience. That's why this is the biggest band of all time, because they didn't rest on the teenage audience. They didn't rest. They went adult, they went, psychedelic, they went rock, they went metal, they went, ballad. I mean, this band was everywhere.
Yeah,
I agree with that,
100%, man.
Lastly, do the Beatles have the best great song to bad song ratio, the best batting average? Is there a band that maybe didn't have bigger hits, but they were more consistent with the tracks they put on their albums?
No, maybe not. I mean, this is a good question. I think that because they have so many, they do have a lot of albums. There are a lot of songs that we talk about. They're like, oh, it's such a great song. It's a great song. It's a fucking great song. That's a great song. We're going to try to figure this out, on the next episode on as far as the best one. Maybe, I don't know. It's kind of hard to say, because I know that in doing this, we've tried to at least put together, 5 songs each that we really, really looked at and really kind of considered. So no, I don't think so. I'm gonna have to say no. I think there's more hits than there are bad songs, but we are acknowledging that there are a few bad songs.
Dave Matthews never put out a bad song. I'm just gonna start with that. No, the Beatles, yeah, they're definitely batting way over 500. They put out so many great hits and songs that the ratio is way off. They're a great band that makes great music, and they've had accordingly. I mean, they've had bad songs, but they've had so much more success and so many more great songs. So they far outshadow the bad ones.
And, in all fairness to the Beatles, I mean, they're such talented musicians and such geniuses. We're not here to shit on them. We're here to just point out which songs we didn't care. It doesn't mean that there wasn't an audience for them. And you'll find out through our selections that some of us are hotly contesting the other person's choice. So there was an audience for all these songs. And when I was looking at some of the other bands, well, which are some of the other top rock bands that you don't hear a lot of bad tracks coming from? I was listening to some Led Zeppelin, and they've had some stinkers. Moby Dick, Candy Store Rock, Walters Rock, The Crunch. The Rolling Stones, Fool to Cry is on a lot of lists, and Mick Jagger saves a lot of songs, not with his dancing, Bob, but with his.
Thank God. Thank you. You finally admitted it. You finally admitted it. I'm glad we're finally on the same page.
Nirvana doesn't have a lot of bad songs, but you could argue some of the second half of In Utero is not as strong as some of their other hits. So I mean, they're out there, but the Beatles, I think, did the best job of capturing all types of audiences. And that's why when you say, well, you know what, this Beatles song wasn't so good, or I don't like this song, or this song sucked. Well, millions of people loved it, and they were trying to cast a wide net. And I think that's why this band is so good, because they weren't, I guess you could say they didn't want to just be straight and narrow. They had this trajectory. They cast this wide net, and they wanted music for everybody. And they did that in such a small amount of time. They were a studio band for 7 years. They were a band for 10 years or whatever. And they did this within a decade. So I just think that's incredible.
Yeah, man. It's something that's just so you don't really see it. When bands, especially great bands, try to wander off into other genres, country or pop, or they try to get a little bit harder with their music and harder rock when they're pretty much contemporary, they get shit on a lot, and people are like, no, that's not your sound. That's not your sound. Why are you trying to do something different than what you're already really good at? And the Beatles were already very good at when they first came over in the British invasion. They were already good at what they did, that beautiful poppy song, that teeny bopper music that all the girls loved. And then they kind of transitioned into all these great genres of rock and pop music. And it's just a testament to this band, because not a lot of bands can do that, can delve into different genres and still be so popular and create so many different hits in so many different genres. It really is truly amazing.
So let's go to our honorable mentions, guys. Joseph, honorable mentions. Who do you have on your list?
So real quickly, let's just throw this out there. Everybody knows Revolution 9. This is something that we were talking about before. This is something that people have messaged us about. I'm sure you all might have been mentioning it yourself. I don't know. I think this is a given, but it's, as we've talked, it's not really a song, but it is very much garbage. I mean, it's just horrible.
That's Joseph with a Jose.
No, yeah, I would love somebody to message us and tell us that they like this song, and please explain in detail. Anyway, I got birthday. Excuse me. I think this is pointless. I don't think anybody likes hearing this song on their own. On their birthday,
you just get embarrassed when they started clapping and bringing you the Sunday at Applebee's. That's what this is.
I don't. It's, to me, it's pointless. I got Obladi Oblada.
I like that song, man.
I know a lot of people are gonna probably not gonna like that. I know a lot of people like the song.
I like that song.
To me, it's just a nursery rhyme at this point. Mothers sing it to their kids when they're putting to bed, and that's cool. I think that's really great. But
your dad left to go get milk. He's not coming back. Hey,
that's really what it is. But thankfully it inspired Why Don't You Get a Job by The Offspring, so I'm happy for that.
Oh, that's right. I learned something. I didn't notice it was the same fucking song.
Pretty much. And then lastly I got Piggies. I think it's just a stupid song, and
Piggies.
Clearly It inspired some horrible shit, unfortunately, and I'll just leave it at that. Just a real quick 4 out there, and so we can get to moving on this topic. How about you, Bob?
I had a Wild Honey Pie. That song is just terrible. It was almost. It was
I don't
almost
know.
my
It
pick,
sucks.
but it's not really.
No.
It's only
Okay.
like
So
45
here's
seconds. It's
so
only
here's
like
yeah.
45 seconds. So it's I can't technically pick it out as like a song and it's a major one of.
Can I ask
songs.
you a quick question on that one, real quick? I'm sorry, but okay. So they wrote this song, right? Because I tried to find the connection between this one and Gorillaz 2000. You hear that, right? You hear that. That's the Gorillaz song. Get the cool, the cool shit. I mean, so I like it. I mean, I like that song.
That's
so if
from
you like
this
that
song?
yeah. If
I did not know that.
You gotta. It's kind of hidden in the back.
Okay.
But you hear that in the background. Anyway, I'm
They
sorry,
actually,
Bob.
like sing and rap over it, and the Beatles were just singing "Wow, honey pie, wow,
Yeah,
honey pie."
I know. It's kind of.
It was just them like smoking a doobie and fucking around
sorry.
on the mic.
I'm sorry. Go, Bob.
We need to kill time.
Man, Joseph schooling us with these samples.
Yeah, Octopus's Garden. Obviously, it's one of their worst. I don't like it. When you have Ringo, I know there's going to be a lot of Ringo Starr fans that are going to really hate me. But when you have Ringo's an amazing drummer. We have him singing the lead vocals. It's usually like not going very well. Penny Lane. I don't like Penny Lane. This is one really popular song, probably a very overrated song. We could have talked about this one instead of yesterday. But Penny Lane, I'm not a big fan of. And lastly, Run for Your Life, Pretty Girl. Like, have you read the lyrics to that one? Holy shit, Jesus Christ! These guys were so angry. If you haven't, check that song out. But yeah, those are my honorable mentions.
I have to agree with Joseph. Obla Di, Obla Da. I don't like that song. Wow. But now that I know that Offspring sampled it, I have to change my tune. But this is
so you like it because Offspring sang it, but not because of Beatles? Who the hell are you all?
This is the type of song they play in a movie where an old couple gets tired of life and commits double homicide on each other. But that's just me, right? Right. Octopus's Garden. Anything with Ringo at the helm is a contender. I think you said that before. I mean, it's got some good slide guitar, but it's cartoony and not in a good way, like a selection we're going to talk about in a little bit. Revolution 9, Joseph, has that. I'm sorry. Can we really count this? I mean, random sounds. Somebody saying number 9. Throughout 8 minutes of it. This is the shit you hear at a bus stop. It's just sound garbage. There's another song sung by Ringo called Boys. Not one of their most popular songs. It's really a point of view song. Maybe not the most comfortable chorus to sing along to, but forget gender confusion. This song just sucks. All right. Sun King. It's a short song, and that's what's great about it.
I like Sun King.
You like? I'm not a fan.
Yeah, I
Sun.
did.
I like Sun Chips. Flying. This is like the great background music for like Nacho Libre type movie, but as a standalone song, no. The continuing story of Bungalow Bill, only because Yoko Ono ruined it, like she did the whole band.
Why?
I first
we
heard.
we had to mention Courtney Love when we talked about Nirvana. Now we have to mention Yoko Ono. God damn it.
I heard this song Christmas one time. It was my first Christmas away from home, and I was spending it with somebody in their family, and they sang Beatles songs, and I was like, this is like a Hallmark movie, because like my family will like play corridos and then get drunk and argue, but this person's family was like playing Beatles songs, and I had never heard this song before. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of catchy. And then I think they played it one or two more times, and I was kind of done with it. So I went to go listen to it, and I just couldn't vibe with it. It's a funny song, but not one of my favorites. And then also, and I want to give a shout out to Did Not Need to Know podcast, because they responded to our story, and they also said Wild Honey Pie, mentioned that it sounds like a car wreck. This is the type of song that would be playing in the background of an illegal poker game in the back of a brothel as you're getting stabbed by a guy named Clarence. So that's all I'm saying. Wild Honey Pie, not one of my favorites, but I did not know the Gorillaz sampled it on 2000. Kind of changes my
I
mind.
believe it's that song. Yeah, I think it is.
We'll have to Google it afterwards.
We'll have to check it out.
So we're going to start with our selections for Worst Beatles Song. Bob, you're up. What'd you have?
There's a lot of Beatles songs that I really love, and I'd like to preface what I'm about to say with that. Like, I love the Beatles. They're probably my favorite band of all time, but they have put out some bad songs, and some of their most popular songs have been bad, at least in my personal opinion. And the song I went with was a pretty popular song. I think it reached number 2 here in the US when it came out. I went with Yellow Submarine. a song that most people will probably call me crazy for picking, but I can guarantee you that half of them don't even know the lyrics besides "We all live in a yellow submarine." That fucking chorus line. This is a song that drunk people will love singing loudly and proudly at a bar at 1 a.m. And it's just really, really bad. And for the most part, those are the only lyrics that anybody really knows. Yellow Submarine was released in 1966 off of their 7th album, Revolver, which is a pretty great album. It had great songs like For No One, which I really love. Gotta Get You Into My Life, Eleanor Rigby. There's a lot of mishits, at least in my opinion, like Taxman, Love You Too, Dr. Robert, and of course, The Yellow Submarine. This song was written by Paul McCartney and John Lennon, and then it was handed over to Ringo to sing, like, "Here you go, lad. It's magic." Yeah, fuck, they're all to blame. They're all to blame, except for George. God bless him. He had nothing to do. He didn't want anything to do with this goddamn song. So God bless you, George. You stayed out of this one. They all knew it was shit, and I think that's why they handed it over to Ringo. They're like, "Here you go, brother. You got this." So apparently it was written with like children in mind, written as a children's song, which makes a lot of sense because it sounds a lot like a song you would hear on the Muppets or maybe some program on PBS. It misses the mark for me big time though. I like the Beatles songs, or I like Beatles songs that are a bit more sad or meaningful or dark, that have these great lyrics, something that makes you think. And this one just happens to be a little too upbeat, and it sounds like a circus that I may have enjoyed when I was 6 years old, but now I'm just like felt like it's one of those songs I change automatically. It's kind of cringeworthy now, to be honest. I think when people think about the Yellow Submarine, they immediately think of the imagery and the movie and that kind of thing. Coupled with the song, they tie them together, which is something that I don't think they should do. This is why most people like the song, because they can picture the submarine and the underwater imagery and that really cool music video, and then the iconic imagery that is the Beatles now on every sticker, on every lunchbox. You have that cool little submarine and underwater logo. But if you separate this iconic imagery from the song and just solely base your opinion of it on the sound, the arrangement, the use of horns for some reason, these weird underwater sounds, and a fucking kazoo for some reason. There's even a guy in the background singing at the top of his lungs. I have no idea who it is. It's probably George yelling help to get him the fuck out of there. And then you add on top of that Ringo's voice. You can agree that the Beatles must have been high off their ass when they created this song. I love Ringo's drumming, his style. I mean, he's amazing, but his voice is just never really been my cup of tea. And I think coupling his voice and his song and all the weird instrumentals and all that, just solely based on the song, this is the worst one that they've ever made.
Bob, you talk about Ringo. One of my favorite John Lennon quotes is when a reporter had asked him, "Is Ringo Starr the best drummer in the world?" And he said, "He's not even the best drummer on the Beatles." So I love that quote. It just reminds me every time I think of Ringo. And you're absolutely right, Bob. It peaked at number 2 on Billboard's Top 100. It's a fun kid song. It's about a happy place. That's all. This is what Paul said.
That was better.
That was better. Yeah. Hey, working on it. All right. I don't have to do all the impressions. He put himself on mute, ladies and gentlemen. He put himself on mute, and he was probably there going.
It's all about the secret to the Paul McCartney is that you just gotta like let go of your jaw. Like it's like somebody just punched you in the mouth, and you just gotta talk. Oh yeah,
that's awesome.
That's the secret. I can't do John. But speaking of John Lennon, Bob, you're not alone. John Lennon hated the song, yet he helped to co-write it. In a joint interview, McCartney and Lennon said that the song's melody was created by combining 2 different songs. It's something that they've done in other songs before. They work on separate songs. They can't quite catch the beginning and the end. So they have a middle of 2 songs that they want to work on. They combine them to create Yellow Submarine. Lennon recalled that McCartney brought in the chorus, the submarine, the chorus part, and which Lennon suggested combining with a melody for the verses that he had already written. So they combined to write on this. And of course, as you mentioned, Ringo sings. And guys, on just the side, what good song does Ringo sing? I mean, can you think of a song that you're like, hey, you know what, Ringo really rocked out on this one? Just on a side note.
Probably not.
Oh, all right, never mind.
Sadly.
He's got something out there.
Was,
No, he
was, he
does,
the,
I'm
was he
sure.
the lead on Little Hope for My Friends?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, I mean, that'd probably be his best song.
Yeah.
To be
And
honest,
you know-
that'd probably be his best song.
And to shit on it, the cover by
Yeah.
Joe Cocker was
We all
Oh,
know
yeah. Yeah, it was amazing.
to say Yellow Submarine is a weird Beatles song. I mean, they had a whole catalog of weird. And a little trivia, I can't verify this, but I read somewhere that Yellow Submarine was played at Kurt Cobain's funeral because his parents said it was his favorite song as a child. No truth to the rumor. He rose
That's
up.
why he was so sad. That's why he was so sad.
I can't verify this either, but no truth to the rumor. He rose up, opened the casket, and told him to shut that shit off. So I don't know. The chorus is fun. It was a novelty, just like Eleanor Rigby, although I think that song's far better. This is a radical departure from everything they were doing, and it was probably helping with their sanity. And this is my argument against this, Bob, is that when you're the biggest band on the planet and everybody's expectations are so high, you got to come with number one hits all the time. I think they did songs like Yellow Submarine and Octopus's Garden and some of these other songs because it was helping out their sanity. I think if you're, serious hit after, collaborative effort, after psychedelic rock song, I think you're going to lose your mind. And that's why I think they submitted this song for as a single. And go ahead, Bob. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's a real quick comment. I think they just needed a smoke break, and they're like, "Here, Ringo, you can sing this one. Octopus's Garden. Knock yourself out. Me and John are gonna go outside and smoke a doobie. We'll be right back." That was the break they needed.
He also sang Lady Madonna, right?
He sang Lady Madonna.
Okay, that's a good song. Okay, to your point, yes. After 3 listens, I was done. I can't get into this light yet compulsive song, but I think in order to, appreciate everything that the Beatles do, I honestly felt that this was just a departure, but it was fun. I mean, I get that this song, it was subversive, it was innovative and experimental, and it doesn't fit everything on the album. And it was kind of a way, and this is going to be my main point. I think this was a way to introduce the Beatles to children. I think that's the part of their charm, is that they capture audiences at every age. And although we want great rock music, right? Sometimes we get thrown for a loop because of mood, strategy, or marketing. And I honestly think that parents listening to Beatles albums all the time, how do you introduce your kids to Beatles song? Yes, you could. I Want to Hold Your Hand, and all those songs are very sing-song.
Secondhand Smoke.
But Yellow Submarine is a good way to introduce your children to Beatles songs, especially young kids who are preschool. I think once you give them a taste of Yellow Submarine, you're getting them hooked to some classic music for the long haul. What do you think, Joseph?
I think both of you all hit this one. What's the term I'm looking for?
Out of the park.
Yeah, so I guess so.
I mean, homer in the ninth.
Y'all pretty much said everything that I fully agree with, which is exactly this is a numbers aside. We understand, like Bob mentioned, this is we've been told that this is a very popular song among Beatles fans. It's a novelty song, to be honest with you. When I hear it now, this is really just like the greatest. Yes, written with children in mind. It just sounds like something that at this point that any children's party musician is going to play. Written by McCartney and Lennon, surprisingly, like how you all said, maybe they were just like in a point where they're just like, fuck it, just put something together and just fucking give it to Ringo. Like
Ringo, Ringo, got something for you, man.
This is the one we're doing for you, man. It's very repetitive, and I it sounds like it reminds me of this joke that Eddie Izzard once made on one of his shows about the Catholic Church choirs. Like when you go to see Catholic churches, when you go to church, like a Catholic church for service or something, and they're singing a hymn that everybody just sounds so like, oh God,
very monotone.
Very monotone. Like he made this joke about how there's a difference between the Catholic church choirs and like gospel choirs, and how there's just complete. This is that song. They all sound like they don't want to be there. Maybe Ringo didn't even want to sing it. No, I mean, just he sounds so like everybody just I mean, it's yeah. This is a bad one, like Bob said. If you know any other lyrics other than "We Are Living in a Yellow Submarine," then good for you. like he said, this is the biggest. That's a weird word. Let's cut that out.
More bigger this.
This is probably one of their biggest marketing ploys ever, and
I can agree with that.
They got a cartoon, yeah.
It stood the test of time, like Bob mentioned. You see stickers, you see shirts, everything. This little yellow submarine thing, you see little action figures. I think who is it? Hot Wheels. I think they even released some special edition cars. For those of y'all who don't know what Hot Wheels are, they're little cars that we used to roll around and play with when we were kids. I think they even released a yellow submarine version at one point. I mean, it's a huge. You think Beatles, you think Yellow Submarine. It's just sad that the song is so horrible. Like I mentioned, it reminds me of Ola Di Ola Da. It's just at this point, it's a
Life goes on, Joseph.
Yeah, it's just it's bad. It's really bad. It's really monotone, like Bob said. There's nothing really that stands out other than the repetitive lyrics and just nobody sounding like they're happy at all.
I love how you mentioned that. I think the correct word that you both used was novelty. I think that's what it is. That's what it's become. It's just a novelty. It's a novelty. And for you, Joseph, you were saying it. I was laughing to myself right now because you were like, it's like they don't even want to be there. They're singing. It's like the guy that you knew in high school was like, I'm in a band and I'm going to make it big. And then, like 10 years later, you cut to him and he's playing like a kid's bar mitzvah and he's singing, we all live in hell. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like that, very unenthusiastic, I think that if you can distinguish between the imagery and the novelty of it and just the song itself, it's really hard to make an argument that this song is a great song in any aspect of it.
And I don't think Lennon or McCartney singing this song would have saved it. I don't. Like, it's not going to matter who sings this song. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, I don't think it works either. But I mean, Ringo doesn't help.
They created a whole cartoon. They even had like enemies, the Blue Meanies, who didn't like music, and they did a whole thing with Yellow Submarine. So yeah, I mean, you guys are both right. Even though one of you offended our Catholic listeners, the other one offended our unemployed listeners.
The band's gonna make it. Come on. Do you believe?
No. As a practicing Catholic, I'll go up next. Okay. So my selection. And no, I wasn't offended. You're absolutely right, Joseph.
It wasn't my joke. It was a joke. That's what it reminded me of.
I actually agree with him. So I'm there with him. All right. So my selection was Within You, Without You. It was featured on Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. It was the last song on the album. So I want to tell you guys and our listeners how I was introduced to this. So I used to supervise this employee back at my old job, and he was a huge Beatles fan. We talk about music all the time. He was a very spiritual guy, played music. He plays around bars here in San Antonio. And we were talking Beatles one time. So he had asked me, what's your favorite Beatles song? And I won't ruin it because that's our next week's episode. But I was giving him all like the hits, like, oh, I like this song and I like that song, and Day Tripper and all this other, and like he kind of like looks at me. He's like, let me play a Beatles song for you that's my favorite. And so he starts playing this song called Within You, Without You, and he's like so into it, and he's looking at my reaction, and it's kind of like I'm just smiling. It's kind of like, what are you going to say to this guy when he's playing this song for you, thinking that it's the best thing in the world? It's kind of like if I said I thought the song sucked, it's kind of like saying, well, you're showing me pictures of your kid and I think your kid's ugly. So I didn't want to say anything. So I'm listening to it. I was like, oh yeah, that's a great song. And I couldn't like scrub it off my brain how bad I felt this song was. And it was 5 minutes. So it was 5 minutes of silence. And I didn't know what to do. If you listen to the song, you can't bob your head to it. You can't sway back and forth. You just got to sit there looking confounded and just trying to you have to run your grocery list through your head. So you don't have that stink face going on, because it's just a bad song. And if you're listening, you know who I'm talking about. I'm sorry. Hey, I was your job reference. So you owe me one. So this is because he knows about the podcast.
By the way, that joke about the guy in the band that's playing at a kid's bar mitzvah, he was talking about you. He just didn't. So he felt bad about saying it, so I said the joke. Just want to throw that out there.
So it was heavily influenced by Indian music. It was the second big Beatles song heavily influenced by Indian music. Love You Too, which was on Revolver, had a more contemporary song, but this song completely lost me. and it was sung by George Harrison. I've enjoyed the sitar on many songs, which the song is very sitar heavy. I've enjoyed many songs with the sitar in it. Painted Black by the Rolling Stones. The intro to Guns N' Roses, Pretty Tied Up. And even though I wasn't a huge fan of this cover, the Fugees, Killing Me Softly. George Harrison wrote this song and was the only Beatle to perform on it. So if you want to put an asterisk on that point, you may. But what does that tell you? The other three wanted nothing to do with this song. Harrison originally wrote this as a 30-minute piece based on a piece by Ravi Shankar. I could barely power through 5 minutes of this song. 30 is asking way too much. The message of the song is great. It's about mortality. It's about our place in the universe. I get that. This thought, concept, ideology helped George Harrison through loss of loved ones, friends, and even through his own terminal illness. And it's been covered by the likes of Patti Smythe, Oasis, Cheap Trick, Flaming Lips, and Sonic Youth. I will say this, the cover by Sonic Youth is really good. They did a pretty damn good cover. If that was the release the Beatles released, I would like this song. The song is just slow and plodding. It reminds me of working out. You ever run the treadmill and thought, I'm going to go for 30 minutes just to get a quick workout in? You're tired, you're worn down, and you look down at the time and only 7 minutes have expired, and you're like, shit, I got 23 more minutes to run. That's exactly how this song feels. And I get that it's about the metaphysical and the spiritual. The cultural and universal aspect of it, I'm good with. It's just very pretentious. It's sort of self-aggrandizing. George Harrison seeks calmness and higher knowledge, so he gets in touch with a few yogis, and now he's telling us what life is about. At least he's not quoting scripture like Coolio, another musical icon. So I get that this was the turning point. I could see Paul's frustrations now. And I'm going to ask you guys about this on the closer. So keep that in mind with Paul's frustrations. John is recording some insane shit and letting Yoko Ono guide him. And George is discovering himself. All Paul wanted to do was play rock and roll music, be a rock star, and keep this band together. I used to think that Paul was the iconoclast in the Beatles breakup. But after seeing the documentaries and listening to this horseshit, I get you, Paul. I'm sorry I made fun of your shitty Christmas song a few months ago. I totally agree with you because this song is absolute garbage. I did not like it. Guys, what do you think about it?
Well, he met with the Maharishi first off. Wasn't just some yogi ran in India. I honestly think, the Indian music and the music and philosophy that George Harrison was heavily influenced by created this sound. We did talk about them being very experimental. It was just a way for him to kind of find himself and try to take the Beatles in a different direction. Was this song good? No, absolutely not. Did it sound like a lot of the other songs that was heavily Indian influence? Yes, I think this one and Love You Too are very much the same song in comparison. I really do think that they're pretty much the same thing. They sound very, very similar. I get what George Harrison was trying to do, even though I don't like it. I get it. He did survive the Yellow Submarine fiasco. Like, he wasn't a part of that shitty song. So, he was due. He was due to have a bad one. And, at least this was for this religious reason and finding himself and kind of wanting to use that as an inspiration for his music. So, I take my hats off to him and give him credit for it. Was this as good as With or Without You by U2? Absolutely no. Not. Absolutely not. Even Bono would say he's the biggest band in the world, not the Beatles. So, he can attest to that. But this song, like I said, when you try different things and experimental things and you're being really heavily influenced by this culture, like George Harrison was, you really want to push that on your music and on your band. And I agree with the fact that Paul McCartney was really pissed off because he wanted to just play rock and roll music, and Lennon was kind of doing a serious thing. But George Harrison too didn't get the credit he deserves. And a lot of times when he wanted to put in his spin or his music or his lyrics, Paul and John were at the forefront, and he never really got to do his own thing. So at this point in time in his life, he's like, well, fuck them and fuck you. I'm going to kind of do my own thing. This is something I'm really interested in. I'm trying to save my life and change my life. So I want this to influence my music. So we're going to add it in tough shit. I think at this point, George Harrison himself was already tired of the race between who's better, Paul McCartney or John Lennon.
I didn't hate it. I that might not be the most popular thing to say. Mainly due to me, when I say I listen to everything,
yoga and meditation.
I you know what you can say. You can say yes. I think you guys know that I listen to a lot of different things, and there's a lot of different. I like Polynesian music. I think I've at least made that known a few times on Instagram. I like different worldly music if it sounds good and can give me this like sort of 5 minutes of meditation or something like that. So I don't necessarily hate this song. I understand the process. I understand he was clearly influenced by it. I think this song is because we look at the Beatles as this one of the greatest rock bands of all time. Yes, they experiment, but maybe this experiment was a little too far of a reach, so to speak. And I understand you can't, it's kind of hard to make out the lyrics, but when I was listening to it, I'm not going to lie, I kind of just sat there and I gave with all of these songs, gave them all a chance to try and find my own, opinion of them. And I kind of closed my eyes and I mean, I'm not a yoga person at all, but I closed my eyes and this song played and, it brought me some kind of calmness. I'll say that. So I don't necessarily hate it. Like I said, I think it's just an easy target because it's so different from what we're used to hearing. And I understand because of that, it gets put on lists and people talk about it. And I've never heard this cover that you spoke of, Randy, and I'll go ahead and check it out.
It's a good cover.
Because, hey, we all know that there can be a bad song that's made 10 times better by a certain band. And if you think that that's a good cover and you'll rather listen to that, then that means part of this song at least has some good quality, whether it was the lyrics or the structure. We know that there's a lot of different instruments in this one. The sitar, like you mentioned, you said sitar a bunch of times. But I understand. Like I said, I understand the hate. I don't necessarily want to hear it all the time, and it's definitely not going to be on any Beatles playlist for me. But I don't necessarily hate it. I'll just say that it kind of brought me a little sense of peace because I do like to take a time out of my day to try and find just a little bit of time to breathe and listen to something soothing. I like crystal bowl meditation. So it's not the same, but it's similar.
Did you guys both like this song because you both love the Michael Myers movie Love Guru?
I love that movie though. I do love that. That's a hilarious movie.
And Joseph, you kind of answered this. If you're going to listen to this song, this is probably going to be something you're just going to, meditate on and listen to. Do you have that same opinion too, Bob? Is this a song that you'll listen to constantly, or were you one and done?
I wouldn't say I'd listen to constantly, but I get the audience that it's trying to go after, I guess you could say. It's a very calming, that the Indian style of music is used a lot for meditation.
Sure, it sounded great when people were on drugs.
Yeah. I can imagine that would probably be the go-to. They're like, and Ringo doesn't sing on it, so even better. But yeah, I can see that that's the type of music you want to go to relax or unwind or to meditate or to kind of clear your mind and kind of just chill the fuck out for a while.
So Joseph, with the most controversial pick, you're up last. What do you got for us?
Here we go.
All right. Yeah. All right. Let's do this. Fuck it. All right. So my pick for this topic is A Day in the Life.
Why?
That's right.
Great song.
That's right, everybody. That's right, everybody. Bring it on. I can feel your anger growing. Look, it's also off of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club. Interesting, wouldn't you think, Randall?
Yeah.
Look, plain and simple, to me, this song is it's two songs, and it's two songs that could be good songs on their own, but they're mashed together and separated by an unnecessary orchestra piece that could be used in a number of films to add suspense to a scene. It's very, very pointless, and I don't see any reason for it. And I'm not the only person that agrees that. I know a lot of people say they like the song, but I know people that say they like the song and agree that there's no need for the orchestra thing. The first part, Lennon's opening, I think it's great. You could have done a whole song just with this, with this flow. I think it might have sounded similar to other Beatles songs, but that doesn't mean it would have been a bad song. When I first heard this song, I wanted to like it, and I probably liked the opening, and then it took a turn. We're going to go into this pointless, atmospheric, full on, loud and rush speeding at you like a car stuck on a train tracks. Let's be serious. If we're on acid or some kind of psychedelic drug, you didn't want to hear this part. I mean, at least I wouldn't want to, and I've never done that, but I don't ever want to hear this thing, when I'm on, if I was high or something. But if you said you did back in the days and said that, it made the song 10 times better. No, you're full of shit. You really are. I'm not the biggest fan of the second verse or the second part, whatever you want to call it, sung by Paul McCartney, but I don't hate it. I think this part sounds like a lot of other Beatles songs. It's very similar to probably songs that they've done. It's very much upbeat. It's pretty simple. There's a lot of quick rhymes. It's very similar to me. When I heard this second part, like I said, this is two different songs pushed together, and I think they could have done their own thing and been, these two great songs without this stupid orchestra thing. We get into the second verse sung by Lennon, and again, it's pretty much exactly similar to the first one. I believe the lyrics are almost the same. I know there's some differences there. I could take these two parts, of that opening part with Lennon and this one, and cut and paste, remove stuff, and I'd probably put them together and make a pretty good song on my own. And I just might do that because I really, really, like I said, I wanted to like this part. I wanted to like this song, and I wanted to like it off of the strength of that opening by Lennon. I thought it was cool. I really did. But I cannot get over this stupid fucking orchestra thing that comes in again at the end. I believe they were, and I know this song, like, numbers aside, I'm not even going to get into the numbers. You all can tell me the numbers. I'm sure you got it written down. I know this song, and you all like this song, so I know you're going to come after me. You all both have told me that you like this song. We talked to some people that told me, like, dude, you're full of shit. How can you say that? It's a great song. It just fucking loses me. It really does. Like, I cannot get over this unnecessary orchestra thing, and I think I think it fucks up two possibly good songs, like I mentioned. I can't say that enough. These could have been two awesome songs on their own. They're mashed together. It screws it up, and then this unnecessary orchestra piece. And I know they were influenced by that. I read that they were really into this, and I know they wanted to incorporate it somehow, but I just thought it was pointless. That's my pick, man. I know. Bring it on, everybody. I can feel it.
Well, before I go, I know Randy's going to go in against you, but you know what? I'm kind of lukewarm on your argument. So I agree with you in certain aspects, Joseph. Is this one of my favorite Beatles songs? Yeah, it's a great song, and I really do like it. But I can agree that this mashup of the Lennon side of the song versus the Paul McCartney side of the song does kind of throw you off a bit. I mean, the opening, of course, is very depressing and dark, and such. The perfect lyrics by Lennon and the way he sings it, and that's what really captures me, and that's what I really love about that song, especially the opening line. The opening first set of lines are just so goddamn sad and depressing and relatable that it makes me have kind of like a love for this song. And then, of course, we do kind of spin it when it goes to the chorus, and you get. Paul McCartney's kind of upbeat, woke up, got out of bed, dragged the comb across my head. Very, very upbeat and shit like that. Like, kind of like a life goes on type of thing. So I can see that the mashup, for some people, it's not going to work. And apparently it's that way for you, Joe. So I can agree with, to a certain extent that it didn't work because they're so different, especially, I guess, where they were mentally at this point in time, as far as their lyrics are concerned, where Lennon was and compared to where Paul was. So Paul was just like, again, so upbeat, while Lennon was kind of down in the dumps and writing these serious or dark or sad type of lyrics. So the song does manage to make it work. It's very much the Beatles, but I can agree that I do prefer the Lennon's sections of the songs more than I do Paul McCartney's.
Here's the deal. Now I'm going into a bad Joe Biden impression after. Here's the deal. Okay. So this was inspired by the death of Tara Brown, who was the heir to the Guinness fortune. Guinness. Did I say Guinness? Guinness fortune. He also instigated McCartney's first experience with LSD. So the beginning of the song was an homage to this heir to this fortune who died at 21 after an automobile accident. John's voice and song narration is really haunting. I really like the beginning of it. And this is probably going to be the only show where we compare a band like Fastball to the Beatles. But like Fastball, the way I love that song, the lead singer read a newspaper article and wrote a song about it. Same with John Lennon. And his voice was, and I love stories like that where an artist is so quick and they'll read something and get inspired, and put pen to paper and write something that just, echoes for eternity. And John's voice and song narration, it's really haunting. And there's a shift that throws off the song, but it didn't bother me. It's like a precursor. What this song reminded me of, and I don't know if you got this from this song, but it reminded me of a lot of Pink Floyd songs, not really in the psychedelic aspect, but the tones, the shifts, and the oddness. It sounds like it was an inspiration for Pink Floyd and what they did in the 70s. And McCartney's middle section, that woke up, got out of bed, was intended for another song, but I thought it melded well together because, like Bob said, you have like this ominous tone of John Lennon, who was always the sort of, I don't want to say he's a pessimist, but he was more the realist, while Paul McCartney always lived above the clouds and said, hey, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And that's why they were such a good balance. So you have Lennon's sort of like dark, ominous tone in the beginning, and Paul McCartney just swoops on in and says, well, it's just another day. Let's go, let's get moving, and let's do what we got to do. And that's kind of like, I guess you could say, a metaphor for life, where some people get destroyed by, bad news, and other people just put on their shoes, put on their pants, and then they just go and they just keep life going on. It was innovative. Sgt. Pepper was so imaginative and playful, and this song rushes you back into reality. And it's the last track on the album. I think I mistakenly said that Within Without You was the last track. This is the last track on the album. I'm sorry. And it's almost a precursor to what was to come with the remaining years of the Beatles, because you could see the differences in Lennon and McCartney and where they were going. And I think it's the best song on Sgt. Pepper. I also think it's one of their best 15 or 20 songs. I really enjoy this song, and I enjoy it for the storytelling and just the vast difference between Lennon and McCartney. And that's just I'm not going to come at you hard, because I could see why some people might hate it, but I really enjoy the differences. Joseph or Bob?
Did you say vast difference?
Something like that.
Go ahead, Joseph.
No, I'd like to say that, because I'm sure, there's going to be people out there that are going to totally disagree with me. And I don't know how many people would actually pick me as a winner for this. Look, I acknowledge, like I said, the first time hearing this song, I thought it was a good song. I was kind of really into it. And then that orchestra thing came in, and I actually thought, like, what the fuck, did I change the channel or something? Did I accidentally skip the fucking CD, or did I, what the fuck did I do? And it was the same song, and it like kills it for me. Because I can hear what this song can be, and it upsets me that it's not that. As much as we talk about how great this band is and how much we're going to continue to talk about them in the next episode, and how we talk about them being geniuses, like you just said, Randy, this opening by Lennon is so just beautiful and doing and how he did it, and then for them to fucking throw that damn orchestra thing in there, and then come back at you with, like, yes, I understand the bad, life happens, and then we got to get up, the Paul McCartney part. I understand that. I just. It sucks for me as a fan.
If I can, I know you've all done a great job of comparing the Beatles to the Offspring and the Gorillaz and Fastball. Congratulations, guys! But I just wanted to throw out there, like, this song reminds me a lot of how different it is with Derek and the Dominoes' "Layla." I mean, I think this is a really great impression.
Thank you, Bob.
Derek and the Dominoes' "Layla" starts off so rock heavy guitar. Beautiful song, my favorite song, and then it hits that little crescendo that's so beautiful with the piano and slows it down. And I think it works and it meshes extremely well. As a matter of fact, that slow down version is my favorite part of the song and my favorite part of Goodfellas. And I think that we can compare this Layla to this song, A Day in the Life, and kind of see how that was a style in a lot of bands around that time in the 60s and 70s were trying different things like that. I don't think it. Like I said, it could throw some people off, like it did you. But I think that little change, that subtle change, especially the way Rand explained it, how some people are just like so like beaten up over the news, and other people are just like it's like, well, it's time to go, get out of bed, let's go, life moves on, let's go. Just like in the song Obadi Obada, life goes on, and that y'all hated, you fuckers. But yeah, I think that it's a great song. It really is a great song. But again, I can agree that I can see where they were in their lives, their mentality, their tone was just too different for the song for some people.
Thank you, Bob. I wanted to just say while Bob was doing that, I was giving him a slight standing ovation, golf clap, because when we were going to do this and I had made it known immediately that this was going to be my pick, I had at one point, I think I was at work, I wrote down on a Post-it note to bring up the fact, because I was going to argue the fact that it was two different songs, or and they could have been great. I was going to bring up the fact, and I wanted to talk about Layla, because Layla to me is a great fucking song, and I don't know why. Maybe because it doesn't have an orchestra that I like. I think that it works so perfectly with that one, and it doesn't work here. It's just a beautiful song. I'll listen to the whole. What is it, like a fucking 10-minute song? I think I don't remember. It's a pretty long song, but and I wanted to talk about that too and compare it and use it as a comparison and try to figure out how. Like I said, why I like one and I don't like the other.
I think
so thank you, Bob.
The tone's pretty similar. Yeah, I think the tone's pretty similar.
Do you like that song, Randy?
Layla?
Yeah,
I love it. I mean, I love the Goodfellas scene. What the fuck are you
yes,
doing?
Exactly.
I'm warming up the car. The fuck you mean you're warming up the car? No, I love Derek and the Dominoes, and I love Layla. But what this song kind of reminded me of, and it very lightly, I know you guys are comparing it to Layla. I could see the comparisons, but to me, the one song that sort of connects me to this song, or connects to this song in my mind, is Time by Pink Floyd, because there's a change in that song, just like in this one. And I get it. This is Beatles back in the 60s where they're experimenting, and Pink Floyd has gone, another 10 years or whatever before they release that song. So they have all that, time behind it, no pun intended, and drugs and everything. But to me, this reminds me of Time by Pink Floyd because of the shifts.
I
disagree with that too.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to be an asshole, but because I think you're looking at it like that opening is what, like
I think
a 5 minute opening kind of
stays around the same throughout.
Yeah, when the song kicks in after the the clocks and the tick, 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 the TikToks. Great song, by the way. We should get into Pink Floyd one day.
Yeah, we'll definitely do a Pink Floyd best of Pink Floyd. I love that. That's one of my favorite bands of all time.
I don't know if that's what you're.
I think
is that what you mean, Randy?
Well,
is that what you mean? How it goes from like the opening TikTok clocks things to the song?
Well, not only that, like there's different melodies in that song that I'm trying to gather, but I think maybe comparing it is not the best way, but I think it's an influence. And that's one of the first Pink Floyd songs I think of when I think of, okay, they probably listened to a lot of Beatles past, from 1966 to 1970. And I think this was one of their songs, one of the songs that inspired them. Okay. It just kind of sounds like
that one, and Us and Them.
Yeah, Us and Them. Yeah, that's probably an even better example.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I do love this song a lot. And I know Bob's mentioned he does too, but I don't know. I find it hard to say, well, what's wrong about this song? I mean, the orchestra doesn't bother me, but everybody has their.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not as upset. Go ahead, Bob.
No, I was going to say, I think this is going to be one that we're going to have the most debate about. I think as far as our listeners are concerned, I think that they'll probably mostly agree with your pick, Rand, and then with mine, they're probably going to be like strong. Yeah, I can see that, or no, I don't. But I think with Joseph, I think it's going to be a pretty hard line drawn in the sand where they're like, no way, you can't talk badly about the song. Or maybe Joseph, I think maybe you may have convinced some people, or have people like take a second thought, maybe go back and listen to Day in the Life and see if they can kind of agree with what you're saying.
I've ruined their fucking day. That's pretty much what you're saying.
Guys, well, at least your song isn't all bright and sunshiny like Yellow Submarine, and I just told everybody it sucks.
You know what, Joseph? As a truce, I'm not as mad about you picking this song than saying that you didn't like Birthday. That's an all-time classic, man.
I think Birthday's overused.
I think Joseph got mad. I think in 7th grade, like we sent the waiters clapping to our table, but we all left to go to the restroom and he was sitting by himself. And I think that he's been self-conscious ever since.
But I gotta give Joseph kudos, because last week he left us hanging on a Nickelback song until the day of, and after when we decided this topic, he was the first one to say, "Oh, I'm doing a day in the life." So we didn't have to wait
without hesitation, without hesitation.
I feel it's because I feel so strongly about it. Like I wanted to like it, I really did, and I can't get over it. I can't.
That's the way I felt about the new Scream movie.
Okay, guys, final questions. And I wanted to revisit this. And Bob, you talked a little bit about this. Paul McCartney as the leader. I think a lot of the songs, and I think all of our examples are perfect, because we talked about the Lennon McCartney dichotomy. We're not Beatles expert. I actually know somebody who's writing a book on Paul McCartney too. I hope to God he doesn't listen to this podcast, because he's gonna say, you don't know jack shit. But I used to always think, because McCartney, and just a little trivia, George Harrison was the one that had the first number one. He was the first Beatle to have a number one solo as a number one single as a solo artist. But Paul McCartney had the bigger career, but of course John Lennon was murdered, and we didn't know what was going to happen in his career. And I always thought in my mind, I don't know if you guys thought this or believed this, but I always thought Paul was the reason the band broke up, like, because he wanted to be a superstar and he wanted to be on his own. And that's clearly not the case watching these documentaries. I felt like he was the guy that was trying to keep the shit together, and everybody was falling apart, trying to discover themselves. George Harrison with his love life and his, the music influence from India. And of course, John with Yoko Ono. Ringo was just kind of being strung along, but Paul really fought for that group. And did you guys get the same feeling, or what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I agree, but I'm of the group that believe that somebody came in and just fucking poisoned them, and that's how I feel. And I
talking about
believe,
Yoko Ono?
Yeah, and I believe that Paul did. I don't think Paul cared about being, and I don't think Paul cared about this who's better type situation. Like who's?
I think they did. Well, I'll get into it when you live.
I don't think Paul felt that way. I think Lennon got that way, and I think he was influenced by it. I mean, clearly we know who the top two were, but and of course, like you mentioned, we're not going to know who had the greatest. I mean, we do at this point, but because Lennon unfortunately was killed before he could continue his career. We don't know what he was going to do. We really don't know where his career was going to go. We don't know what was going to happen. Clearly, Paul McCartney's had an incredibly successful career after the Beatles. Maybe that speaks volumes to the people that believe that he was the leader, he was the best or whatnot. But no, I agree. I think that Paul tried to keep everything together. I believe so. I mean, that's just me.
I think that I think there's a lot of factors. I don't think it's one particular person. As people tend to grow, remember, they're just young kids, man. I mean, they're young men that came across. They became, this ultra famous rock band here in the UK and here in the United States, pretty much the entire world. And, as they grew and they grew older and everything that was going on, I know that Lennon and Yoko, and then Lennon got really into the activism and the protesting the Vietnam War, and George Harrison kind of went off into India, and he was trying to find himself. So they all just kind of grew, and as they grew and they got into certain things, they were all kind of trying to find their place in the world, while Paul McCartney just wanted to play music, it seemed. So I could see like them especially Paul losing his grip. But for us to say that there was no ego, there was definitely ego had a lot to do with I would just assume, but ego had to have played a lot to do with them breaking up as well, because I know I've read that George Harrison felt kind of slighted at times because he'd want to get lyrics or songs in on albums, and it was the Paul and Lennon show the entire time, so it was hard for him to do that. He did have a very good solo career, by the way. My Sweet Lord is probably one of my favorite songs, and we probably wouldn't have My Sweet Lord, Rand, if we didn't have your Indian inspired, what's it called with you?
Yeah. Also, didn't he rip off the Supremes? He's my guy or something.
He's not. Well, they didn't rip him off. It's called being inspired, sir. Just like he was.
Hey, they won a lawsuit.
But they got paid, and they shouldn't be complaining. All right. So I mean, you're not saying that about. I got my mind set on you. Are you? Goddamn, who did he steal that from?
There's only one lyric to that song.
Just like Yellow Submarine. There you go. I want to cut it all.
I mean, I love George Harrison, and I mean, points made on both of your parts. But let's close out with this: had they stayed together for one more decade, and we know how 70s rock evolved and everything, and we saw what Paul McCartney did with Wings, and John Lennon had his pathway in the 70s. He died in 1980, and so did George and Ringo. What would happen? What would they have been in the 70s? What do you guys think?
The Rolling Stones. I think they would. I think they would have continued to evolve and put out some really good music. They're the biggest band in the world. They have been for the longest time since they came over in the 60s. I could only assume that they would have evolved, and we've talked about their batting average, them putting out so many great hits and such great music compared to all the minor setbacks and minor mishits. I think they would have continued and had some major hits in the 70s. I really, really do. If they had kept it together, I think they would have continued to make some just out of this world music.
It's kind of hard for me to say on that one because there's a lot of great music from the 70s that we've talked about extensively that, we might not have if the Beatles are still doing their thing. So it's a, what is it, double-edged sword type situation. Would they have put out some good songs? More than likely. I mean, probably they were the fucking Beatles, but because they weren't, actively doing, stuff throughout the 70s, would we have not had disco? Maybe, and that would have been great, but nah, just fucking around. But I mean, yeah, but like I said, there might not be some of the songs that we love very much if they were still doing their thing.
Paul McCartney had a great career with Wings, but I cannot see John Lennon saying, "Oh yeah, you know what? Let's sing Jet. Jet's a great song." I think that was all Paul McCartney, and you saw what his influence carried on over to his own project and everything. And I think a lot of it was just dispute. And yeah, ego had a lot to do with it. Differences growing up, different influences, different loves. And I mean, I do have to give Paul credit though, because I think he wanted to keep it together and he fought tooth and nail to keep that band, and it just wasn't going to happen. But man, they gave us so much, and we're going to continue to talk about their music next week. Any last words on the Beatles, guys?
They're one of my favorite bands, and I'd love to talk more about the Beatles, and I love to listen to the Beatles, especially when we're outside, having a drink and talking and having a good time. My daughter loves the Beatles. She actually might influence me in my pick next week as far as the best Beatles song of all time. We'll have to wait and see on that, but it's just my favorite type of music. You can listen to them when you're sad. You can listen to them when you're happy. You can listen to them to while you're cruising, while you want to laugh, while you want to smile, while you want to, change your whole mood and attitude or relax. They're just that perfect all-around band that has a little bit of a little bit of everything for everyone.
Like Bob said, and how you all said, there's more. They're batting above 500. I don't know why we keep going to the baseball reference. Maybe because we're excited because the baseball's back. But more great songs than bad songs. But I think it's fun I think it was cool. I think it was fun, whether you wanted to hear it or not. And it's a great debate. Obviously, I think this was fun. And I bet a lot of people are probably cursing at us or making up their own opinion. In particular. So this is, I think it's a great one. I think it is. This was a lot of fun.
It's going to be difficult next week. I think it's going to be one of our most challenging shows because in their short, 7 to 10 years, there were so many. Here's another baseball analogy. There were so many curveballs they threw at us with their growth and their different types of music. So it's going to be interesting what era Beatles song we're going to select from and argue that. So guys, thank you so much. And that's our show, everyone. Listeners, we'd love to hear from you. Hit us up and let us know what your pick is for the worst Beatles song. Most importantly, let us know what you think about the show. You may reach us at formidableopponents@gmail.com and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook by searching for Formidable Opponents. We'd like to thank Creative Little Pill for her artwork, and join us next episode as we're going to continue this conversation. We'll be back in 2 weeks doing some traveling this weekend, or next weekend, I should say, and we're going to restore the balance across the universe by arguing best Beatles song. So for Bob and Joseph, I'm Randall. We'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Have a good one, folks.
Keep Will's wife's name out your fucking mouth, everybody.